3 top tips if you're selling your estate and letting agency. Today, I'm joined by Sue Hopson, who is the compliance queen from the South Coast. And she's here to talk to me about the 3 things that estate and letting agents should do before they put their businesses on the market. Sue, thanks for joining me today. What are the 3 big top tips that agents must do if they're going to sell the business? Number 1, talk to me.
Number 1, definitely on the letting side is landlord terms of business. It's very interesting. I do due diligence on behalf of buyers, and I will go out and assess these businesses to see if they're going to be skeletons in the cupboard, etc.
Kind of like someone buying a business, you do an MOT on it.
I do, yes. And so therefore, this is advice for people who are selling, because really what you don't want is me coming in and finding lots of problems, because I will find problems, because that's what my job is. And I don't like to walk away empty handed. So generally, there will always be something on that list, I'm afraid. But the first thing to look at is your landlord terms of business, because without that, where is the contract? It surprises me again how many people do not have them in place when they're selling a business. And they're the most important thing. They're the most important thing. There are a couple of things within those terms that actually make all the difference. One is that they're signed. And 2, that usually we're looking for an assignment clause in there as well, which allows the agent that's selling to assign their business to somebody else. Because, of course, some landlords may find that sort of unacceptable. You know, I instructed you, Chris, because I trust you. I don't accept that you're going to hand my business to somebody else. But it's easier if you have that clause in your terms of business, because it's there and somebody's signed to say they accept that at some point you will be moving the business on. I mean, that's the nature of running a business. So those terms need to be in place, but it's not just any terms. They need to be good terms. And it's about where they've got them from.
Download it off Google.
Well, that is the problem. There are lots of different terms out there that I've seen as I go around, and it's the old adage that it's not in the back of a fag packet. That will not cut it. We need some decent terms. You need to have terms that are being put in place. Buy them from Property Mark, or get them from Property Mark through your membership, or buy them from a reputable industry lawyer, someone who's really good and hot and updates them regularly.
Have you got some names you can recommend?
Well, I think that probably someone like Dutton Gregory are very good. They are very good at offering terms. And if you're a bigger agency, they can slightly bespoke them for you as well. Again, in my time with Winkworth, with Martin & Co., PFG, we have looked at, we've been through Dutton Gregory, and I'm not saying we've been through them because they weren't suitable anymore. It's about the availability for a big business like the ones I've been working in. Because it's quite a big job. So we've worked with, say, Dutton Gregory, Anthony Gold, Payne Smith, but they all have very good ways of giving you something that is watertight. The terms are there to protect you as an agent and to protect your clients. So they work both ways, and it needs to be detailed. We are a professional, and we should be advising our landlords as a professional. They expect us to be telling them what they don't know. And when I find people who've got terms that aren't terms, they're just a letter that says, I'll let your property for you at 8% management, it doesn't cut it anymore. If you look at the TPO standards, and again, something I tell people to regularly do, have you ever looked at the TPO standards for lettings or sales? No. Well, I suggest you do that, because that actually tells you what you should be doing from the start to the finish and what you can't do during those steps. And one of those things is to make sure you've got clear terms of business in place. And it just is a shame when people don't do that.
And if they haven't got them, it's a case of get some and get them signed up.
Well, it depends where you are in the stage. So if you've actually, it's personally, in my opinion, I don't sell businesses, but I do look at them, as I say, from a seller's point of view and from a buyer's point of view. Now, if someone instructed me as a seller, we could probably remedy those things before it goes to market. If I'm looking at it as a buyer's perspective, really, those last minute dashes to try and get landlord terms of business don't always work. If you've not got them in place and haven't had them for 10 years, are you going to get them realistically overnight? And you've got to remember, when you buy the business, you're going to issue your terms. So are you going to really upset a landlord by asking them for this week and then
It's a good way
another
to
one?
knock them down, though, isn't it?
It is a good way, but then unfortunately, I think it does come back to another thing is, are the landlord terms of business in the correct name? I'm still finding agents that don't do a land reg check to make sure that they're actually dealing with the owner. And again, so if you're buying a business based on X amount of landlords in terms of business in place, and then you find out they're not the owner and they can walk away, you've paid for nothing. So there's a few checks and crosses and balances that should be taking place on both, whether it's at the buyer stage or whether it's pre that at the seller stage. And I recommend that the seller prepares their business rather than puts it on the market very excited and then finds they've got some skeletons in the closet.
So just to confirm, you're happy to go in to someone preparing their business for sale,
Absolutely.
but also go in with someone who is buying a...
Absolutely.
Okay, good stuff.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's number one. What's number two?
Number two is the client accounting. It is unfortunately one of these terrible sides to our lettings business that people really struggle with. And I always say, well, we'd have chosen to be an accountant if we wanted to do accounting. We actually have chosen to be agents because we like selling, we like looking after properties. So therefore, it's very difficult to get excited about client accounting when really all you want to do is sell and service people's properties. It's quite often that, again, I will find problems with the client accounting at the stage of doing the due diligence ready either for the seller or for the buyer. It again sometimes is just, it's not intentional. There are very few people, and I have met those few people because that's my business. I have met those few people who are intentionally trying to defraud the clients, but there are also people who are just naive and they think they're doing it correctly, but actually they've just been doing it wrong for years.
I mean, I've heard some stories of, I mean, I used to work for a very large firm and you knew they hadn't done anything wrong, but there was 40 grand missing from their client account because it's amazing what the rent went one way and...
It's sadly, again, it's easy to do. People can easily siphon off money, either as owners of businesses or staff members. So unfortunately, that is the case. But it's also about things like looking at the deposits or just looking at balances that are on the ledgers. Sounds very boring, and everyone, that's why they hate client accounting. But there is a cash ledger as well as there being a ledger, i.e. the money that the landlord owes, but he hasn't got any money to pay it, and ditto with the tenant. So you need to inspect those and have a quick look at those and see
you should.
what's
If
relevant.
you've got 100 properties under management, you should roughly know that
Yes.
the deposit should be X because it's 100 times the average rent.
Absolutely. And it's also important to know, has anybody paid rent up front? Where is that rent? Is it being held correctly? Or has it been handed over in full? And again, when you're selling a business, just sort of factor in that I did meet someone who decided to try and renew all their tenancies and take the management fee up front for the next 12 months. Well, that's also not great when you're trying to sell a business because you've had all the money and someone's going to buy something that they're going to manage for nothing. So you've got to be sensible and think about how all of the client accounting, the fee taking, the balances are looked at prior to getting that business on the market. Because if you don't, if I'm acting for the buyer, I'll find them and I'll question them.
Let's just go down the rabbit hole of deposits. I've heard some horror stories. What top tips you got for that?
Yeah. I think everybody that's ever met me will know that I am a custodial girl through and through. I have been since the inception of tenancy deposit protection.
That's sending the money away.
That is sending it away, getting it out of their midst, out of temptation's way.
Yeah, I'm going to buy a Porsche though.
I know. I mean, how are you going to pay the school fees? I used to get collected from the station by lots of franchisees and business owners in the times gone past. And I would sort of have a quick look at what I was being picked up in to work out whether I needed to check the deposits first. And actually, it usually works. So it is a problem. There are still problems with deposits. Not reaching their destination, even in the custodial scheme.
Because it's one of those things that if you've got like a couple of million quid, it doesn't really matter if there's 100 grand because you're not going to need all the money at the same time.
And that has always been the problem. I mean, that's a discussion in itself, really, because a lot of people who deal with the insured scheme do just that, Chris. They have a huge pot that they're putting aside on high interest and leaving that locked away for, say, a 12-month term. And then they have like the slush fund that does the churn. So they never need to touch this, and this is earning money. But that's so against the rules. The point is it's supposed to be accessible at all times at the drop of a hat and ring fenced. It's not their money. I don't know why people still don't understand that. And I'm still seeing it on a day-to-day basis.
Day to day.
Absolutely, that people are still putting money aside, putting money off, paying money to themselves, not ring fencing it. And we've got CMP in place here. How does the CMP get put in place? Who's checking this? Anyway, I find them when I go out and audit them. I will find it. If somebody has not got their deposit money where it should be, I will find it. And that's why I prefer the custodial scheme. There are still ways around it. Of course there are, because, you know, where there's a will, there's a way. But
Like putting 0 as the deposit on the
yeah,
CRM, and then it corresponds because it is 0.
yeah, absolutely.
But again,
absolutely.
these are the things you've got to know.
If you've not seen it happen before, you won't know to look for it. And I think that's what 30 years in the industry does for you. You've seen all the tricks, but every day there's a new trick. But you have to be in it every day to learn what that new trick is now. I learned a new one that I'm not sure I'm allowed to share yet, but I have found a new one, which really, again, I was aghast at, that somebody had the gall to do. But until I started delving, on the face of it, it looked totally innocent. It looked like everything was fine. But it was far, far, far from fine. And that's the problem. And quite often it starts with
Okay,
deposits.
so don't mention firms, but what was the issue for you?
Paying themselves the rent. So taking money up front, and instead of paying it to the landlord didn't know the money was paid up front, but they were paying it to themselves and then paying it back into the landlord on a monthly basis if they felt that the tenant was not going to go into arrears. So it was hit and miss as to whether the landlord would get the money or not.
Wow. Wow. What's number 3?
Number 3 is the rest of the paperwork. So again, with lettings, it's very complicated. There are lots of different documents that you need, lots of different things you need to prove, the safety documents, how you served your information to the tenant. You need to be able to prove this in a way to your buyer that they're not going to get caught up with something that you have not done. So again, sensibly, before you put your business on the market, everyone's got CRMs now. There are such great CRM systems out there, but they're only as good as what you put in. Let's just caveat that. But just check. Are any gas safeties that are out of date? If so, why? Have you got notes against them? Are the EICRs coming up? I mean, we're at that time, you know, 2019, 2024, 25, they're all coming up again for renewal. And there's a mass of people wanting to try to get them done all at the same time. So is it that you haven't got it done because you haven't got a tradesman in place in time? Is there an inventory in place? You know, again, I go through landlord statements. I can see that a landlord's been charged for inventory, but there isn't one on file. So if you've charged, where is it? And is it there? Is it something that's comprehensive? So there's all this documentation. And specifically, which is more topical at the moment, is making sure you can prove that the correct documents were served to the tenant when they took the tenancy.
Because you can get clobbered on that one, can't you?
Absolutely. You can really come unstuck if you've not done what you were supposed to do right back at the beginning.
Next, you're going to tell me, coming back to deposits, that you've got people not registering them.
Of course we have. And that's another check that I will do. I always do cross checks. I don't ever take anything for granted. I've always been a detailed person for years. That's why I love my job. And it's a little bit sad, I know, but I do like the detail and I like to get into it and see. And I will cross check the deposit records with the CRM deposit records. But then I go a step further and I check all records, even the ones without a deposit, against it. And I will look at those individual tenant ledgers to see, did they pay a deposit? Where's it gone? Oh, let's have a look and trace the money through. So I do interrogate to make sure that just by saying there's no deposit taken on the CRM doesn't mean to say that there wasn't a deposit taken. You should never take anything on face value when it comes to money.
Thank you for your time today.
Lovely. Thanks so much, Chris.
Put your comments whether you liked it, and if there's any other things that you know that people should be looking for when or buying or selling an agency business. Thank you for your time today, Sue.
Thank you.